All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. Those who might be new to Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, we're all about bringing science, adventure, exploration, and conservation live into classrooms across North America and beyond. So with the school year now in full swing, we're hosting 30, 40, even 50 live events a month with scientists, explorers, adventurers, and conservationists from all over the world. So many of you tuning in right now are familiar with the Darwin200. So we've had a couple events with them over the last over the last month as they've circumnavigated the United Kingdom in the tall ship, the Pelican of London. So we connected with them on the Isle of Lewis in Scotland. And then we had an absolutely incredible event live from Bass Rock with 150,000 gannets. It was loud. From what I hear, it was smelly. But it was absolutely incredible to be able to broadcast that live now. So this amazing journey circumnavigating the UK was kind of a pilot mission for the bigger Darwin200 in 2021, following Charles Darwin's epic voyage in the Beagle, stopping in 50 ports. It's going to be quite an adventure. We're going to learn all about that in just a moment. Along the way, they were looking at the health of the waters in the UK. They had a team of scientists and videographers on board. I'll share the website later so you can see some of the amazing video content that they created. So they have finished their journey. They've arrived back in London, sailed under Tower Bridge. They are now docked the Pelican of London at Canary Wharf, and we have a really cool event in store for today. So I'm going to introduce now Stuart McPherson. Stuart's an explorer. He's a biologist and really spearheaded this expedition. So let me bring him in live. Hey, Stuart.
Hello, everyone. It's lovely to join you. I'm with my good friend, Dr. Rowan Holt, who's the marine biologist and chief diver on the Darwin200 ship as you sailed around the UK's waters.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Nice to meet everybody.
Yes. So it was lovely to speak to you last week from Bass Rock amongst all the hundreds and thousands of squawking gannets. It's slightly less noisy here in London, although we are all around all the bankers and all the central business district. So it's a little bit of a contrast from Bass Rock and all the wildlife that we've been seeing. But we're absolutely honoured and privileged today to be joined by Sarah Darwin, who is Charles Darwin's great-great-granddaughter. And she's a very kind and wonderful supporter of the Darwin200 project. And it's an absolute honour to have her here to speak briefly to us today. So a massive, massive thank you to Sarah for joining us.
Wonderful. Well, it's an absolute honor for me to be invited. I'm so excited to see your ship, see you on board your ship. It's absolutely wonderful.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thank you. So all things being well, we're going to start the global voyage next year, over 2 years, sailing right the way around the world. The goal is to then beam out live throughout the entire voyage from really exciting, exotic destinations to engage with schools right the way around the world. So with wonderful Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, hopefully the next 2 years are going to be a very, very exciting time for all of us ahead.
Absolutely, Stu. So I have a video queued up, a cool little intro that you sent me earlier about the Darwin. Why don't we run that and we can dive into a little more of the voyage and talk to Sarah?
That'd be great. Thanks.
All right.
Darwin200 is a planetary conservation initiative. Next year, we are going to begin a voyage around the world, following Charles Darwin's journey on his ship, HMS Beagle. Our mission is to help create a brighter future for our planet. We're going to train the world's top young conservation leaders and create the world's most exciting classroom by beaming out interactive experiments, activities, and resources to schools across the globe to engage millions of students during every single day of our voyage. Our goal is to inspire passion for science and conservation. This year, we're undertaking a voyage around the United Kingdom to test our systems and get ready for next year's global adventure. We are halfway through our 7-week voyage around the UK. We've sailed along the coasts of England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, and we're now amongst the beautiful Isles of Scotland. During our journey, we've undertaken studies of dolphins, whales, birds and seals. Our dive team is surveying UK waters and has already found colourful cuckoo wrasse, anemones, jellyfish and cup coral. The data we collect is going to several recording schemes for conservation studies. We've brought on a team of young scientists in partnership with the University of Plymouth. They're studying a range of subjects, including pollution, macroplastics, microplastics, planktons, and many wildlife studies. We're creating videos about our adventures and launching them every few days during our journey, so you can take part in our adventure. Visit Darwin200.com for details.
All right, so that gives a nice kind of little taste, I think, of some of the adventure and some of the things you saw along the way. I'm going to tuck myself behind the scenes now, Stu, and I'll come back in for a little live Q&A action.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for that introduction, Joe. It's a pleasure again to speak. And Sarah, we obviously, everyone is very interested in your wonderful work. What sparked your passion for nature and science and conservation and your work as a botanist?
Well, I think actually, as often happens, quite a simple thing, in fact. When I was a child, my mother came into my brothers and my room very early one autumn morning and said, "Come on, let's go mushroom hunting." So we kind of got out of bed. It was probably around this time of year, September, and it was still quite dark. And we got out of bed and we went and collected mushrooms around near our house. And interestingly, both my brother and I both say that was, funnily enough, a really pivotal moment in both of our interests of nature and wildlife and pursuing conservation.
That's wonderful. That's such an interesting start to it all. That's absolutely wonderful. I notice you have a bust of your illustrious great grandfather to your right behind you. I'm sure he would. I know, of course, he studied fungi and mushrooms in great detail, and so I'm sure he would have very much approved of those beginnings.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Of course, I'm aware you've spent a lot of time in the Galapagos as well, and done some incredible research and your PhD out there. I've never been to the Galapagos myself yet. What is it like, and what was the wildlife that you saw like? What was your favorite animal, or how did you find it?
Well, I mean, when one of the times I went there, we actually arrived by ship, which is, I guess, what you will do. And that is just an incredible, because you're constantly looking on the horizon. When will I see the first cloud that will indicate that we're arriving at the Galapagos? You know, because it's about 1,000 kilometers off the coast of Ecuador. So this arriving in Galapagos, as Darwin did, watching the great islands emerge from the horizon line was just absolutely incredible. And I'm sure you will love that as well, as will your viewers. So that was very exciting. And of course, you know, Galapagos is just the most extraordinary place. It's famous, of course, because the animals show no fear of humans. So you can literally walk up to them and they will come up to you. And that is an extraordinary experience, since we're always in the UK, we're always, having to keep really, really quiet to see a sparrow or a squirrel or something. But in Galapagos, they just sort of seem to ignore you.
Wow.
The giant tortoises, of course. I think I've got one here to show you. Yeah, I've got all the paraphernalia here. They're the size of a coffee table, a large coffee table. So they really are quite astounding, and they sort of look. Well, they are prehistoric, and they look prehistoric. And when you approach them, sometimes they kind of sit back on their legs, and they'll pull their head in. And as they pull their head in, they have to sort of empty their lungs. So they do this extraordinary hissing sound. And they are the most amazing creatures. And of course, they actually eat and disperse my my PhD subject, which was Galapagos tomatoes. So the great tortoises actually eat the tomatoes and disperse them. So they were sort of part, if you like, of my interest while I was studying.
That's such an interesting. I didn't appreciate that. I didn't realize they were the distribution vector. That's really amazing. Did you find different tortoises have different diets on different islands, or do they?
Well, I was really doing the botany. I did a little bit of analysis of pollination, but I didn't actually. I mean, other people have analyzed, the tomato seeds that go through the gut. I think they take around a month to go through. But of course, the abrasive action that takes place with the seed actually helps the tomatoes germinate. Anybody at home who might have a pet tortoise will know that if you feed your tortoise tomatoes, you'll find little seedlings of tomatoes popping up where your tortoise has pooped. So they provide wonderful fertilizer, they disperse, and also they have this abrasive action on the seed which actually help it germinate.
That's absolutely fascinating. I honestly didn't realize that. That's absolutely fascinating.
Growing around sewage farms in the UK. If you look around
absolutely.
sewage farms, tomato plants do very well.
Yeah,
they certainly do. And in fact, I understand, Rowan, you'd probably be able to tell us more, but they're actually used as an indicator, aren't they?
yes,
Of sewage?
yeah, I heard that. Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. Were the giant tortoises your favorite animal out in the Galapagos?
Favorites? Gosh, that is, I mean, there is so much to choose from. I think the flightless cormorants. So those are very cool. So they really look like a normal cormorant, large black bird with a long black neck. But when you see them standing on a rock, they'll dry their wings, and you suddenly see they have these little vestigial wings.
Wow.
And so they really have lost the ability to fly, which has improved their ability to swim through the water. Because the interesting thing about Galapagos is that for an adult bird like the cormorant, there's actually no predator, so they don't need to fly off, if that makes sense. So there was no need to expend all that energy with feathers that would allow them to fly. It's more efficient to have something that will allow them to swim efficiently.
Yes, yeah.
Do they have much bigger feet in that case as well, compared to normal cormorants?
That's a very good question. I have no idea. That's there you go. That's a fun little research project.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. Well, we thoroughly look forward to visiting on the Darwin200 Voyage and beaming live, and we'll join you, of course, from Galapagos. We have to, of course. And
that would be wonderful. Yeah.
That would be incredible, absolutely. Or perhaps we can organise for you to come out or something like that, and we can see them together. That would be a wonderful lecture for exploring by the seat of your pants. That'd be great. It must have been an amazing and very, I presume, emotional moment for you personally, seeing the islands and reflecting on your great grandfather's voyage. What was it like for you seeing that?
Well, actually, it was quite funny. So I went on a trip with my one of my brothers and my parents, and we went on a boat trip in the Galapagos. And our guide was a lovely Ecuadorian guide, and he kept on saying, when Charlie was here, such and such happened, and Charlie said this, and Charlie wrote that, and eventually we were all a bit bemused because we were clearly supposed to know who this Charlie was. And so my mother said, could you possibly tell us, who is this Charlie? And the guy just sort of looked at us. He couldn't believe it. He said, well, of course, it's Charles Darwin. And none of us had ever really referred to Charles Darwin. We tend to call him either Darwin or Charles Darwin. But, they were calling him Charlie in the Galapagos, which was very cool.
Wow. That must have been a very interesting moment. Yeah. You don't associate that name, or Chuck. You wouldn't really say Chuck Darwin.
Exactly.
Yeah, that must have been a funny moment for you. Yeah. Are there any moments from the Beagle voyage that you were most excited about us recreating in the Darwin200 voyage, when we follow Charles Darwin's journey on the Beagle, or any other elements in addition to the Galapagos that you're excited about?
Well, I must say, I think as you know, and your viewers probably don't know, I was lucky enough around 11 years ago to do a similar voyage to you. I didn't spend so much time on the ship, but we made episodes for television for the VPRO, which is the Dutch equivalent of the BBC. And one of the places that we went to that I have to say I wasn't not looking forward to going there, but it wasn't high on my list, was Tierra del Fuego, right at the tip of South America. And I arrived there and was absolutely bowled over by this pristine, beautiful, wonderful landscape. I mean, it was absolutely breathtaking. And as I wandered through the forest in Tierra del Fuego, for the first time in my life, I realized that something was missing. And I don't know whether anybody can see, whether they can guess what I thought was missing. Perhaps we can have that as a question later.
I think I might have an idea, but I won't say anything. I will see if any of the students listening. So did everyone hear that question clearly? Students listening in classrooms, what do you think the answer to Sarah's question is? What was missing in Tierra del Fuego since Charles Darwin visited? Let's see at the end. Let's see if anyone can work out what it might be.
Yeah,
I think that's a sneaky feeling. It does look very, very, very beautiful, and I bet it must have been an adventure exploring the beautiful canals down there. Did you see Mount Darwin, named after your ancestor?
Yeah, we did. And actually, if you look over my shoulder there, you can see a copy of one of the paintings that was done in Tierra del Fuego.
Wow.
And that shows the mountain range. It's not so easy to see. It's a little bit old, this picture, but it was incredibly moving. It was incredibly important for Darwin and his theory, Tierra del Fuego, and it was incredibly beautiful. And I was very, very lucky to have met one of the very last Yagan Indian people who are originally from this part of the country. And spent a bit of time. Actually, we looked at plants together, which was a wonderful activity.
Oh, that's amazing. That's
I have a little boat here. I have another little prop. So Tierra del Fuego is translated into English. It's the land of fire, and these people who lived there they were semi-nomadic, and they would travel around by little boats that looked like this. And this was actually made by Christina Calderon's son. And Christina was the last Yagan Indian, pure Yagan Indian in Tierra del Fuego. And what is so incredible is that the people who lived there used to carry fire with them everywhere, because they didn't have clothes. So they needed to keep warm. So being semi-nomadic, they would put the fire into the bottom of the boat, and they would actually carry it around with them. Hence the name, the land of the fire.
That's incredible. That's wonderful. I remember reading in the Voyage of the Beagle, Darwin describing the lights on the cliffs and as they journeyed round in the land of fire. So thank you. That's wonderful to see. That's really, really wonderful. I mean, that you raise a very good point. People think only of, or often mainly associate Galapagos with with Charles Darwin's Voyage. But of course, as you pointed out, there were so many locations. He undertook such fascinating jobs, such fascinating research and work in. I've been very lucky to go to the Falklands, and I know he spent twice as much time in the Falklands as the Galapagos, and did some very, very interesting, very rudimentary work that developed some of the rudimentary ideas that led on to the theory of evolution in the Galapagos as well, before even getting, in the Falklands as well, before getting to Galapagos. So, yeah, it's a very good point. He went to so many extraordinary places. We've had a question. Sorry, yes.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, I think another really important place for Darwin was actually the Atlantic forest. So this is the tropical rainforest that you find down the Atlantic coast of Brazil, because he really experienced probably the first time, real biodiversity. This area teeming with life. And I think he had, one of these sort of psychologists probably call them like a peak experience, where he sort of ran out of words to describe the emotions that he felt seeing all these extraordinary butterflies, smelling all the tropical flowers, and listening to all the birds and insects.
Wow. I that's a lovely way to say it, a peak experience. We're conscious a lot of the Atlantic forest has sadly been destroyed since Darwin's visit. So one of our goals is to plant 1,000 trees, at least 1,000, hopefully considerably more, but to help in a small way to start to restore and work with some of the wonderful conservationists in Brazil, undertaking this important work. So yeah, it's wonderful that some pockets have survived, and anything we can do to help expand it and help restore these beautiful Atlantic forests to replenish that biodiversity
that's absolutely wonderful that you're doing that. And as you say, there are a lot of very, very committed conservationists in Brazil planting up the forest, and actually I planted a tree in the Atlantic forest as well. So
that's wonderful. Well, we've got quite a few questions.
Wonderful experience. Yeah,
I bet. I see we have quite a few questions coming through. I know you're very busy. Should I hand over to Joe to field the questions?
All right. I will pop back in. Sarah, that was awesome. It's great to hear some of those stories. I visited the Galapagos in 2016 and got to swim a couple times with the flightless cormorants. And their eyes, those blue eyes, are just, I'll never forget how blue their eyes are. Pretty incredible. And their back legs, they're big and meaty and just powerful for coming through the water. It's pretty cool.
Very good. Excellent.
All right. Well, let's start grabbing a few questions. So I'm going to go to Mr. Armstrong's group. He's got grade 6s, grade 7s, and grade 8s joining him today. So I'm going to bring him into the call. And Mr. Armstrong, if you have a question queued up from one of the students, we'd love to steal one.
Yeah, you can go right ahead with those questions. Anthony asked what the favorite part of your job is. Michelle asked elaborated on how long you got started. You mentioned the mushroom hunting and wondered if there you must not have just jumped into the work as it is now, but how long since you've been doing the work in your field?
Gosh, two lovely questions. So, well, the first one, what does my work involve now? Actually, I work, if you can believe it, I work on birds now. So it's a little bit different. And I'm interested at the moment in the relationship between humans and nature. So I collect stories that people share with me about experiences that they've had when they listen to birds. So, for example, my mushroom story would have been, an example of an experience that people have with everyday nature that surrounds them. And I look at those stories, and I'm interested in relating to people with nature in a slightly different way than just being a scientist. And the other question, what was the other question? Remind me. Oh yes, how did I move from mushroom hunting onto biology studying? Well, as you quite rightly established, I was probably about 10 at the time, and I grew plants for many years. But in fact, when I left school, I actually went and studied art. which has been incredibly useful. So I do botanical paintings. And then I got into botany because of botanical paintings. And then I studied the plants in the Galapagos. And since then, I've really been working more on this relationship between humans and nature.
All right, very cool. So that class is joining us, grade 6, 7, and 8 in Hanover, Ontario, so here in Canada. We've got a second class joining us here, Mrs. Carrero's class. Let me bring her into the call. So Mrs. Carrero, when you're ready, we'd love to steal some questions. And you have Woodville listed as a location. Where is that? Oh, Mrs. Carrero, we can't hear you. We had you before, but the mic doesn't.
Let me now.
Ah, gotcha.
Okay, so I'm going between my students and you guys. So, you know, we're all learning at the same time. So we're in California. We're in the Central Valley in the very middle. We basically, we're known for supplying all the fruits and vegetables across the United States. So, yeah. I'm looking to see if I have any students that have any questions. Mine are kind of quiet today, this group. So I'll just wait for them.
Okay, well, I will come back in and we'll challenge them to pop in a couple questions for us for the next time that I check back in.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, no worries. So we've got a question here that came in online. This is from Thomas. And Thomas is wondering, you know, evolution is such a hugely important concept. Do you think there's anything, a concept in biology as important left to be discovered?
Wow. Well, that is a good question. Let's have a think. Do I think there's anything waiting to be discovered? Oh, well, yes, of course. But who knows what it is? Because I think a lot of times with scientific discoveries, you know, you have to have an initial idea, if you like. So Darwin, when he was researching into his origin of species, he had an idea, but then he was looking to try and find the process of speciation, trying to work out how it actually happened. So I'm absolutely sure there will be lots of exciting questions still out there for all you young scientists to aspire to in the future.
All right, Stu, I'm going to put you on the hot spot here. We have another question. Where did the concept for this come from? Not only like a pilot voyage around the UK, which is big enough, but to undertake something as large as the Darwin200?
Well, it's been 10 years of work. So it's been 10 years of developing the idea. In serious work, 2 years. And we've been incredibly fortunate to work with some really wonderful partners. And the goal is to try and energize and bring together young people to help get kids away from the computer screens and into the wild parts of the world to get their hands grubby and re-engage with science and conservation. As you may know from our previous lectures, we're trying to create the world's top young 200 conservationists and make the world's most exciting classroom with activities, experiments, competitions, citizen science research projects every single day of our 2-year voyage and weekly lectures as well. So honestly, where did it come from? It came from a simple idea about engaging young people and hopefully engaging millions and millions of people around the world to care for our planet, to love the amazing nature that we've got and cherish what we still have. Because conservation is about what we still have. It's not about doom and gloom. It's about caring for what we still have and creating a better future for our world. So all of those things.
All right. And I've got a diving question here. So I think we have the perfect person to answer it queued up. How many dives did you get to do during the journey? And did you have a compressor on board?
Yes, we did have a compressor on board. I was also using a rebreather as well as part of the diving, which allows us to stay underwater for a long time. We did around about a dive per week, so it wasn't that many, but it's a rare treat to get so many dives done in so many different places that are very, very different from each other as we went around the UK. So we were down in the southeast, then southwest, then up through into Scotland, and the far north, and then far northeast. So it's a real sort of big biogeographical variation between everything that we've seen. So yeah, not that many, but very interesting all the same.
And in really remote places, some really remote locations as well. So that was good, really exciting.
Yeah, that must have been a highlight. And then I assume you were diving with a dry suit. I think the waters are a little chillier.
Yes, I always dive in a dry suit because I don't like cold water. But Stuart was a lot braver than me and had a really thin wetsuit on. But yes, we usually dive in a dry suit, which keeps us nice and warm.
I've got to be honest, I started to regret not listening to Rowan. He's much more intelligent, much more knowledgeable than I am. And the waters of Scotland were certainly quite chilly after an hour or two in the water. So to be honest, yeah, have to learn from the expert here next time and really follow his advice, because it was really quite chilly.
Sounds like Canadian diving. It's always cold here. I still dive wet though here in Canada. I don't find I get it in the water, but when I get out and the wind hits me, then I realize what I've done. Yeah, very cool. Mr. Armstrong, I can see you've got another question teed up, so I'll bring you back in to go ahead and ask that question.
Yeah, students were asking about the favorite parts of your work, and in particular, Aaron asked what the biggest tortoise was you've ever seen.
Oh wow, the biggest tortoise. Well, it's kind of like that big. I don't know. I'm not very good at. I can tell you the smallest tortoise I've ever seen was that size. So they have a breeding. They have a research station on one of the islands in the Galapagos on Santa Cruz, and they actually captive breed tortoises there, and in order to let them go into the wild again. And so I've seen tortoises that are that size. But of course, it takes like, I don't know, 80 maybe years for them to get to the enormous size that they are. And I don't know, I'm sort of guessing over a meter, probably.
Wow, that's a big tortoise. Very big. Very big.
All right, Mrs. Carrero, I think they've got a question teed up in California, so I'm going to bring her back in.
Yes, one of my students asked, her name is Bonnie, and she said, is there anything about your job you don't like? Even though it's an amazing job.
Hi, Bonnie. Yeah, that's a really good question. What I don't like paperwork. Yeah, I mean, I love doing my work. I love everything about it, but sitting down and having to do the sort of the bits of paperwork, that's not my favorite thing. But you know, you have to take, every job has its good bits and bad bits, and you have to end up by doing all of those bits.
All right, fair enough. So Stu, you're a biologist as well, done a lot of exploration, discovered some cool new species of carnivorous plants. I imagine you probably feel the same way. Writing papers and things like that isn't always fun.
Yeah, that's true. I spent about 10 years climbing mountains and living in a tent, basically in the rain, often on misty mountains in Asia, often having just a can or two of tuna a day. So I loved every moment, of course, but I do remember coming down from those mountains and having massive meals and feasts when I came down. So I guess for me, sometimes the food in really, really remote places maybe isn't the absolute best, but the experiences and the memories and the discoveries and the adventure that you have, as I'm sure Sarah will testify, makes it all well worthwhile. So for you young guys listening at schools around the world, don't think adventure and discovery is in the past. Sarah's proven as well. There's wonderful research you can undertake all the way around the world to discover and make incredible findings. So all of you young ones watching at schools around the world, yeah, I really hope you go into a career of science and conservation and help us, all of us, appreciate more the beauty of nature around our planet.
Yeah, and I think there's one sort of a message that I get from Darwin loud and clear was that before he left the UK, he was incredibly familiar with his own nature in the UK. He knew the insects, he knew the beetles, he knew the plants, he knew the geology. And what was so important about that was that when he arrived finally, you know, in this fantastic tropical forest in Brazil, he therefore knew that what he was looking at was different. So I would say that there is wonderful nature all over the world, but in order to appreciate how wonderful it is, it's really helpful if you know what's in your backyard, what's in your back garden, what's in your local pond, or if you live on the coast, what's in the ocean. And you start by learning, just what's on your doorstep, and then you know what is different about what you see elsewhere.
That's a really good point. That's a really, really good point. I wonder if any of the students have worked out the answer to Sarah's question from earlier. Has anyone out there had an idea what could be missing from the forests of Tierra del Fuego?
Okay. So those who are tuning in live with us, you can use YouTube if you want to try and pop in, or sorry, the chat sidebar if you want to try and pop something in there for us. And then Mrs. Crow's class, Mr. Armstrong's class, just shoot me a message in the chat if they put any predictions in for us, if they can kind of take a little guess at what maybe they didn't see there. While we wait for that, though, I did get a new question in via YouTube. Wondering about, are there any dangers or risks involved in work in the field or sailing, around the UK or around the world?
Is that for Stuart or for me or for Roan?
Why don't we do both? We can jump between both. Why don't you start, Sarah?
Well, of course, there's always dangers, but there's dangers in your kitchen as well. So, doing field work, you have to be very careful. When I'm sure when Stuart and Roan are doing their field work, you have lists, you check your equipment, you make sure that you go through various protocols so that you know that you're at least trying to minimize those risks. But of course, there are always risks.
Yeah, I of course echo that too. Going around the UK and our tour ship, we've had to be very careful. We've been taking young scientists as well, and some of which had never even been on a boat before. They had to climb up in the rigging all the way up to the mast, up to the top of the mast, clipping on with safety harnesses all the way up. But it just goes to show that if you're careful, you can absolutely do things safely and have incredible experiences. And many of them watched, for example, dolphins skimming across the surface of the water around our ship, flocks and flocks of birds flying through past the vessel, and obviously reaching out to all the islands that we've been passing. So even though there can be dangers, if you're sensible and take it seriously, you can also overcome those dangers with sensible thought and precautions, and have some incredible experiences. Yeah.
And you can start young as well. If you want to learn to do something like that, to dive or to snorkel, then start young, get your training done, progress, steadily through different levels of training, and then you'll find that you can minimize your risks by being familiar with the situations that you put yourself in. Things like that. A bit of training will actually stand you in good stead as you go forward into a job and later life.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's true. So get out there into the field and go exploring, all of you young ones at school. Get out there and see nature in its real sense out in the wild. It's the best way you can go and appreciate it.
All right, absolutely. Let's check in and see with our two classrooms just to see if anybody had any predictions for what was missing. So we'll check in with Mr. Armstrong. Did they send any predictions in, Mr. Armstrong? Or did we stop?
No, they're actually they're trying to search it up on the internet to find out the answer.
That's cheating.
Yeah.
All right.
Yet, but they're asking, what is it? Tell us.
Okay. Let's check just to check with Mrs. Carrero. And I know you have another good question there too, Mrs. Carrero, so I'll bring you back in. Any predictions, guesses?
Something that there's no fire there anymore. I saw that. So that was the response. I didn't know if they understood the question.
All right, fair enough.
Shall I tell you, or shall we wait a little longer?
I say let's reveal it. Let's reveal it.
Okay, reveal. So walking in the forest of Tierra del Fuego, I could nearly hear the echo of the footprints of the native people who used to live there. But sadly, when I was there were no people living in their forests. I'm glad to say that things have changed, that land now is being assigned back to the local people. And while I was there was a home being built in a beautiful, beautiful bay. So with any luck, maybe there will be people walking through the forest again. Because what struck me, I mean, very often one sort of looks, you sort of think about conservation. Oh, well, it's all the humans' fault. You know, I wish there weren't humans in this place. But actually, humans have a wonderful, wonderful gift of being in nature, and I fully support people spending time in nature. And here I was in a place where the humans were so missing from that landscape and that place that it was so obvious. So absolutely, get out there, go and explore, and see what you can find. Go and lift up a few stones and see what you find underneath, and get out there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great advice.
If I can end on one story on that note, which I particularly love, and I hope Sarah won't mind me sharing this from her wonderful ancestor. But Charles Darwin, I believe, while he was at Cambridge, before he began the voyage, Sarah might correct me on this, but I believe it was before he even went on the voyage of the Beagle. He loved beetles, and he turned over a log and found one beetle, so picked that one up with his hand. He turned over another log and found another beetle, so picked the other one up with his other hand. But then a third beetle, which was even rarer, scurried out from the log. So he grabbed that one, put that one in his mouth, but unfortunately that one bit his tongue. And so it bit his tongue, spat that one out, and dropped the other two from his hands, and all three scurried away. So that just shows you what a wonderful explorer and naturalist, and how enthusiastic he must have been. So yeah, I really hope everyone listening to this has enjoyed our time with Sarah, and will get out there and explore and have adventures for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So Stu, as we're getting close to wrapping up, I'm just wondering, are you able to go mobile and just kind of give us a view on deck before we log off today?
With pleasure. If yeah, absolutely, with pleasure. To be honest, it's been a little bit rainy and grey, so you're not seeing it its absolute best. We're inside the ship. She's currently being reprovisioned, so there's supplies, tons of supplies, all over the ship at the moment. But yeah, of course, with pleasure. Rowan is very kind. Oh, Rowan's going to be cameraman.
Yeah,
okay.
so I'm up. Yeah, you can see my nose.
All right, road trip.
There we go. There we go. Yeah, so we'll take you out outside, and a quick walk around on the deck, so you can see the masts and the sort of shape of the ship. Here we go.
Yeah, I can see you're tucked right in the downtown there on Canary Wharf.
Yeah, we've got Canary Wharf all around us here. Yeah, let's go. Let's go. Here's the ship.
There she is, the Pelican of London.
Absolutely. And if the children can look carefully, you'll see a little figurehead of the pelican right there. So she's, come over on this side, so that the mic's over here. 7 weeks we've been sailing past islands and beautiful wildlife, and now we're in the concrete jungle of London. This is the banking area.
Yeah, it looks a little bit different from some of the remote areas we connected from.
Yes, there's no gannets here. No gannets.
No. But we'll walk down the ship. She's 45 meters long. There's also about 45 people on her. The Beagle is shorter. If I remember correctly, I think about 30 meters, but maybe slightly incorrect, but around that length. But she had over 60 people on. So she was shorter and more people. We're 45 meters with about 45 people on. She has 3 decks inside on top. This is the stern, and she has 3 masts. And if you angle the camera, you'll be able to see all up there. Those are the 3 masts. And the young scientists would climb all the way to the top platform to look for wildlife and look for birds and explore and see the incredible landscapes. So yeah, a little. Oh,
there we go. See the back of there's the stern, Pelican of London.
Very cool.
Should we run up to the stern? Have we got time?
Sure. Yeah. So that's what we sailed around the UK, and the last 7 months.
All right, so it looks like we're going to head and check out one more part before we log off for today. Very cool.
Okay.
Stu, we just can't hear you. I think you're a little far from the mic.
Oh, she's beautiful, isn't she?
Yeah, it's pretty.
Sorry.
You don't see a lot of ships like that anymore.
Sorry, it's a little bit windy here. Sorry about that. If you couldn't hear, okay. I'll just
we
turn
can hear you.
all the way up. That's up there in the rigging, and so if people can imagine, all of the sailors and all of our young scientists have to climb up the rigging behind us here, and it's not as scary as it looks. It's a bit like a ladder. So you have to climb up these ropes here to set the sails, go right the way up to the yards, and so that's what they've been up to for the last 7 weeks.
Right the way out there. Okay.
So I hope that's a nice little overview of our ship and
All right.
what we've been up to.
Very cool. Well, what a journey, and an even bigger one to come. Stu, thanks so much for taking us into that journey, taking us on the Pelican. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing some stories with us and memories. It was an absolute blast to host both of you today, and we're looking forward to more adventures from the Pelican.
A massive thank you to Sarah, because I know how busy she is. So thank you so much for joining us. We all really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, Stuart and Joe. And Roan. Hi there, Roan. This is absolutely wonderful to have a look around the ship and to talk to you guys, and very, very best of luck with the next steps.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's lovely to see you all.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Stuart, Roan, Sarah, amazing. Thank you.
Thanks. Take care, everyone. Have a lovely day. Cheers. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.